The Lyra Vault floated in silence near the edge of the Draylen Belt, a lonely space station far from any major trade routes or battle zones. It was a place where forgotten things were stored, lost relics, broken tech, old data cores, and files from civilizations long gone. Few visited. Even fewer cared what was inside. But for Cale Trin, it was home. Cale was a galactic archivist. At 27, he was one of the youngest to hold the title, but also one of the most curious. While others saw the vault as dull and pointless, Cale saw it as a place full of whispers from the past. He spent most of his days in silence, reading logs, cleaning old drives, and wondering what the galaxy had once been before it was torn apart by war. The war had lasted for 1,000 years. No one remembered why it began. Factions rose and fell. Worlds burned and were rebuilt. Peace became a myth. The leaders spoke only of control, strength, and survival. Art, culture, and emotion were dismissed as distractions. Music was nearly extinct. Cale didn't know much about Earth. It had been destroyed long ago. Some said by its own people. Others blamed an asteroid or a collapse in its core. No one was sure. All that remained were small records scattered across space. And that day, one of them came drifting toward Lyra Vault. The probe was small and old. Cale spotted it by chance while running a routine scan of nearby debris. Its surface was scratched and scorched, its power low. But the signal it sent was unmistakably artificial. He brought it aboard with the station's retrieval drone and carried it into his lab. The probe's shell was sealed, but Cale was skilled with ancient tech. Within hours, he opened it and found a single crystal data core inside. It had Earth markings on it, an old language called English. Cale ran it through a translator. Earth Memory Capsule Number 12, Audio Archive, One World. There was only one file. He hesitated. Then he pressed play. The lab speakers came to life with static. Then, soft piano notes began to drift through the air, gentle, slow, and unfamiliar. A voice followed, human and warm, singing in English. The words were simple. One world, one light. We rise together through darkest night. One hope, one sky. No more fear, no more lies. Cale stood frozen. He didn't understand all the words, but something in the melody gripped him. It stirred feelings he didn't have names for. His chest tightened. His eyes burned. He had studied hundreds of alien cultures, read stories of empires, and decoded war messages, but nothing had ever made him feel this way. When the song ended, silence filled the room. Cale sat down slowly. His thoughts were racing. It wasn't just the song. It was what it meant. A message from a long-dead planet. A sound built not to command, not to warn, but to connect. He played it again. And again. Each time, the feeling grew. It wasn't just beautiful. It was powerful. He imagined what might happen if others heard it. People who had known only war. Species who had forgotten emotion. What would they feel? A small light blinked on his console, an alert from the central network. All uploads and broadcasts were monitored. Cale knew he had to be careful. If he shared this, it could be flagged. Or worse, erased. But he couldn't ignore it. The song mattered. In that moment, a quiet thought formed in his mind, clear, bold, and terrifying. This could end the war. It sounded impossible. Ridiculous. A song couldn't stop 1,000 years of bloodshed. But it had to start somewhere. Cale copied the file to a secure drive. He looked out the small window of the station, at the endless stars, and whispered to himself, "They need to hear this." Behind him, the song began to play once more. Cale Trin did not sleep that night. The song echoed in his mind long after the last note faded. He had listened to it more than a dozen times. Not once did it lose its effect. The melody stayed with him, stirring feelings he had no name for: peace, sadness, hope. He sat alone in his dim lab, staring at the secure drive. Inside it was something ancient, something pure. A voice from Earth, a planet long dead. Yet the message felt alive. Morning brought no sun, just the soft hum of station lights and the usual silence of the Lyra Vault. Cale made a decision. He would share the song, but carefully. He knew the dangers. All transmissions were watched. Every signal was scanned for threats. Sharing forbidden content, especially from lost civilizations, was a serious crime. Still, Cale couldn't keep it to himself. He walked down the main corridor, carrying the drive. The walls were smooth and gray, lined with blinking panels. Most of the station's workers were machines, but a few other archivists lived there. Cale trusted only one, Dre Mellon, a technician and an old friend. Dre was a brilliant, tall, thin, with silver skin and deep-set green eyes. He worked in Maintenance Bay 4, always tinkering with broken tech and talking to himself. Kale found him hunched over a damaged drone. Busy? Kale asked. Dre looked up. Always. What did you break this time? Kale smiled slightly and held out the drive. I found something. I need you to hear it. Dre took the drive with a raised brow. What is it? Just play it. Dre inserted the drive into his console. The speakers clicked on. The piano began. The voice followed. As the song played, Dre's hands froze. His eyes narrowed, then widened. By the end, he was completely still. The room fell quiet. That, he whispered, was human. Kale nodded. Earth. I found it in a probe drifting near the station. I didn't know humans could make something like that. Kale leaned in. It's more than a song. Did you feel it? Dre nodded slowly. I don't know what I felt, but it reached something inside me. That's why I need to share it. Dre looked uncertain. You'll be flagged. This kind of file, it's emotional influence. That's classified tech. Dangerous, by Dominion law. Kale's voice lowered. Maybe that's why we need it. This galaxy has forgotten how to feel. All we know is war. Dre hesitated, then handed the drive back. If you're doing this, be careful. Kale thanked him and left. Back in his lab, Kale accessed the vault's private transmission network. He couldn't broadcast the song widely, it would be caught. But he could send a copy to someone who might understand its value. He knew just the person, Ayla Soren, a cultural researcher on the neutral world of Thales Prime. She had written essays about ancient languages and forgotten art. She might see what he saw. Kale encoded the file, added a short message, and sent it through a secure back channel. Ayla. Found this in an Earth probe. Please listen. It's important. Kale. Then he waited. 2 days passed. On the third day, Ayla replied. Kale. I listened. I don't know what this is, but I cried. I haven't cried in years. Where did this come from? We need to talk. But before Kale could respond, the vault shook. A tremor rippled through the walls. Alarms flashed red. He ran to the main screen. The station's defense sensors had activated. A ship had entered restricted airspace. Kale's heart sank. It was marked Drex Dominion. The Dominion didn't patrol this sector, not unless they were looking for something. His message had been intercepted. Kale opened the system logs. A security sweep had scanned his transmission. The song was flagged as cultural interference material, banned under Article 9 of Dominion Protocol. They called it psychological warfare. To them, music was a weapon. Kale didn't have much time. He rushed to his quarters, grabbed a bag, and packed only what he needed, the song drive, a translator, and his data pad. He knew the Dominion would reach the station in minutes. He sent a quick message to Dre. They're here. I'm leaving. Tell no one. Keep the systems clean. Dre replied at once. I'll stall them. Good luck, Kale. Kale ran to the hangar and powered up the station's small shuttle, a relic itself, barely used. As he launched into space, the Dominion ship loomed behind. It was dark and sharp, like a blade slicing through the stars. He turned off all active signals and fled toward the edge of the Draylen Belt. He had no clear plan, only one goal. He had to spread the song. It was the only thing in the galaxy that didn't speak in orders or threats. It spoke in hope. As Kale disappeared into the stars, the melody played softly in his head. Kale drifted through the cold dark of space, far from the Lyra Vault and everything he had known. His shuttle, the Turn, was an old scout vessel, small, slow, and invisible to most scans if its systems stayed quiet. It wasn't built for long travel, but it was all he had. He powered down every unnecessary system and moved by solar drift when he could. The Dominion was out there, searching. He had seen how fast they moved, how precise they were. He knew they wouldn't stop until they erased the song and him with it. But the song wasn't just a file anymore. It had become his mission. Kale's destination was Thales Prime, a neutral world untouched by war. The planet was known for its libraries and research centers, a rare place where learning still mattered. His contact, Ayla Soren, had responded with interest. She was waiting. He just had to get there without being caught. The journey took 5 days. He passed through asteroid fields, ghost sectors, and long stretches of black emptiness. He lived on nutrient packs and recycled water. He slept in short bursts, always listening for alarms. On the 6th day, he reached Thales Prime's orbit. The planet glowed green and blue, lush and calm. Kale sent a signal to a hidden dock near Ayla's facility. Within minutes, the ship landed quietly on a private pad tucked beneath a hillside. Ayla was waiting. She was human, like him, though older, perhaps in her 40s. Her eyes were sharp, and her expression serious. "You made it," she said. Kale stepped off the shuttle, holding the small case with the song. "I didn't think I would." Ayla nodded and led him inside. Her lab was filled with old texts, alien art pieces, and data consoles humming with soft light. Kale handed her the case. "You said the song made you cry." Ayla sat, inserted the drive, and played it once more. The room filled with the soft piano notes, followed by the human voice. The lyrics were simple, clear, and steady. "One world, one light. We rise together through darkest night." Kale watched her face. She didn't speak until the song ended. "I haven't heard anything like this in my entire life," she said. "This isn't just music. It's a message, one that bypasses logic and speaks directly to emotion. And that's exactly why the Dominion fears it." "I need to spread it," Kale said. "Every world, every species, they all need to hear it." Ayla looked uncertain. "That's dangerous. They'll come for anyone who helps you." "I know, but I can't stop now." Ayla studied him. Then, slowly, she nodded. "I know someone who can help." Later that evening, Ayla took Kale to a hidden room beneath the research complex. Waiting there were 3 beings from different species. The first was a Voran diplomat named Selv, short and covered in scales. The second, a tall insectoid warrior named Then, who had once fought for the Zalari front. The third was Nira, a soft-spoken healer from the moon of Vaughn. Each had been affected by the song. They had heard it through underground channels, or from people Ayla had quietly shared it with. It had reached them. It had changed them. Selv spoke first. "The melody reminds me of dreams I didn't know I had. I haven't drawn my weapon in days." Then, the warrior clicked his mandibles. "I watched the stars while it played. For once, I didn't want to fight." Nira placed her hand on her chest. "It made me feel connected, like I wasn't alone." Kale listened, heart full. These were the first true signs that the song could do what he hoped. Ayla said, "This is what we're fighting for, not with guns, but with memory, with truth." But peace never moves without noise. That night, the Dominion found them. The alarms screamed through the facility. Kale and the others ran for the emergency tunnels. Ayla stayed behind to stall them. Her last words to Kale were, "Keep the song alive." Kale, Selv, Then, and Nira escaped through an old service shaft that led to the cliffside. The turn was hidden in a nearby cave. They launched it under stealth, just before a Dominion cruiser arrived in orbit. From space, Kale watched Thales Prime burn. The research center was destroyed. Lives lost. Another place silenced. But the song lived on. Kale and his new allies flew into the black, heading for the one place left where they might still broadcast it, a forgotten communications tower hidden in neutral space. He felt sorrow for Ayla, for Thales, but also strength. The song was no longer his alone. It had voices now, hearts. It was spreading, and the Dominion knew it. They would hunt him harder now. But he wasn't running anymore. He was moving forward, with a song that had become more than sound. It had become hope. The turn glided through dark space, silent and invisible. Inside, Kale and his 3 companions sat quietly, eyes fixed on the stars ahead. No one spoke. The weight of what they had lost on Thales Prime still hung in the air. But so did something stronger, purpose. Their destination was a forgotten outpost in the neutral zone, far beyond the reach of most patrols. It was called Relay Station 9, a massive broadcast tower built centuries ago to link colonies during the early days of galactic expansion. Now, it was abandoned, drifting alone above a small frozen moon. Ayla had told Kale about it in her final message. Relay 9 still works. It's off-grid, deep in neutral space. If you reach it, you can send the song across the galaxy in one pulse. No filters. No blocks. That was their goal now. As the tower came into view, its shape grew on the screen, tall, thin, like a metallic spine reaching toward the stars. It spun slowly, its old solar panels cracked and dim. Still, Kale could see faint energy readings on the scanner. It was alive. Barely. Selv leaned over the console. "Power levels are low, but the main array still responds." "We only need it to work once," Kale said. They docked with a quiet hiss and entered through a manual airlock. The station groaned with age. Lights flickered, just floated in the air. The walls were lined with wires and dead screens. It felt like stepping into the bones of a long-forgotten creature. Kale led the group to the command center. It was cold and empty, but the main control board still blinked, just barely. Then stayed at the entrance, guarding. Nira followed Kale, eyes wide, taking in every relic. Selv moved to the console, his clawed fingers tapping gently. "We can reroute emergency power to the signal amplifier," he said. "It will burn out the system, but it should be enough to send a full band transmission. Kale nodded. Do it. He placed the drive into the main port. The station hummed softly. The song's file appeared on the screen, oneworld.mp3. Kale stared at it. This was the moment. One pulse. One chance. Once he pressed send, the song would travel through every open channel, reaching thousands of systems. People, soldiers, leaders, even enemies. All of them would hear it. But before he could begin the upload, a blaring siren echoed through the station. Incoming ship, then shouted from the entrance. Dominion signature. Kale's stomach turned. They found us. A deep, rumbling voice came through the comms. This is Commander Virex of the Drex Dominion. Power down your systems and surrender. That file is classified. You are charged with cultural disruption, emotional manipulation, and treason. Kale stood still. His heart pounded. Virex. The name alone was enough to paralyze most people. Virex had led Dominion forces for over 30 years. Ruthless. Brilliant. Unforgiving. If he was here, it meant this was more than just another mission. It was personal. Seld looked at Kale. We don't have time. He'll blast the station before we finish the upload. Kale stared at the screen. His finger hovered over the send key. His thoughts raced. If they stayed, they might all die. If they fled, the Dominion would erase the tower, and the song would be lost forever. Then's voice came through again. He's boarding. Kale turned to his allies. Get to the escape pod. I'll stay. Nira shook her head. You won't make it alone. I have to. If the signal isn't sent, everything we've done, everyone we've lost, it means nothing. For a moment, no one moved. Then, Seld gently placed a hand on Kale's shoulder. Make it count. The others ran toward the emergency pod. Kale stood alone in the dark command center. Outside, he heard the clang of boots on metal. Dominion soldiers were inside now. And then, the door opened. Virex stepped in. He was tall, armored in black, with sharp eyes and a voice like thunder. You, he growled. You're the one spreading this filth. Kale didn't flinch. It's not filth. It's a song. Virex laughed coldly. A song that weakens armies, disrupts control, makes soldiers cry like children. You think this brings peace? It brings chaos. It brings feeling, Kale said. That's what you're afraid of. Virex took a step closer. Shut it down. Now. Kale looked at him. No. He pressed send. A blinding pulse of light burst from the tower. The song, once hidden, now streamed across the galaxy, through every open channel, every relay, every listening ear. Virex stared at the console. What have you done? Kale didn't answer. He was listening. Listening to the first notes of One World fill the air one final time. The first notes of One World echoed through the command center, soft but strong, like a whisper breaking through silence. Virex stood frozen, staring at the console. Around him, the station lights flickered, reacting to the power surge of the full band transmission. It was already too late. Kale didn't move. He kept his eyes on Virex, watching as the commander's expression shifted, not with rage, but confusion. The song filled the room now, flowing through every open channel in the galaxy. Kale knew there was no going back. Across Orion Prime, the signal spread. On the war-torn world of Velser, soldiers from both sides dropped their weapons mid-battle. The music reached them through helmet comms and ground units. At first, they looked around in confusion. Then, slowly, their eyes changed. Some sank to their knees. One soldier, a Voran fighter known for never showing emotion, began to cry. In the deep mining colonies of Rexer 9, the song poured from public broadcast towers long thought broken. Miners stopped drilling. Machines paused. The workers looked up at the speakers as if hearing a voice from a dream. On a floating city above the gas giant Tirelease, school children stopped their lessons. Their teacher, a strict Drex educator, leaned against the wall, hand at his chest. He had never heard music in his life. Now, he couldn't stop listening. And in the farthest corners of space, where only silence had reigned, the melody arrived. One world. One light. We rise together through darkest night. In the command center, the final notes of the song played. The air felt still, heavy with meaning. Kale slowly turned to face Virex. The commander hadn't drawn his weapon. His fists were clenched, but his face was different now. The sharp anger in his eyes was replaced by something quieter and unfamiliar. Why? Virex asked, his voice low. Kale replied simply, because we've forgotten what it means to feel. That song reminded us. Virex didn't respond right away. He looked at the screen, where the signal log scrolled endlessly, showing the song's journey to every system, every planet, Every species. They'll feel hope, Kale said. And when people feel hope, they stop fighting. Virex took a long breath. His armor, polished and perfect, now seemed like a cage. I've commanded war fleets for decades, he said. I've silenced rebellions, crushed peace talks. I believe peace was weakness. But this is something I don't understand. Kale nodded. You don't need to understand it. You just have to let it in. Virex turned away. He didn't speak again. Outside the station, the stars remained unchanged, but the galaxy wasn't the same. In the hours that followed, ceasefire requests began to rise on communication networks. Messages flowed between enemy factions. Small, uncertain gestures, one side laying down arms, another responding with silence instead of fire. On Thales Prime, the ruins of the research center still smoked, but people began to rebuild. A few survivors found Ayla's backup data core. Inside was the full song and Kale's original message. They need to hear this. The message was shared again. On Lyra Vault, Dre received the signal and knew instantly what had happened. He smiled quietly, sitting in the silence of the empty corridor, the melody playing faintly from a speaker above. Back in the escape pod drifting through neutral space, Selv, Nira, and then watched the stars. Their small screen showed signal reports, all marked. Received. Played. Response. Unknown. Selv broke the silence. He did it. Nira nodded. It's spreading. Inside Relay Station 9, Kale stood alone. Virex had left without a word. The station was failing. Power was draining fast. The transmission had taken everything the old system had left. The lights flickered one last time, then died. Kale sat in the dark, the echoes of the song still fresh in his mind. He smiled. He didn't know what the galaxy would look like tomorrow. He didn't know if wars would end or if leaders would change. But he knew something had begun, something real. And this time, it didn't start with force. It started with a song. Weeks passed. Across the galaxy of Orion Prime, things began to shift, not in grand explosions or sudden peace treaties, but in quiet, steady ways that had not been seen for 1,000 years. It began with silence on the battlefields. The great war machines of the Drex Dominion stood still outside the border colonies. Patrols stopped firing. Enemies who had never spoken began sending simple messages. Do you hear it too? No one needed to explain what it was. The song had reached them all. On every planet, in every system touched by the transmission, something had changed. People began listening more, speaking softer. Soldiers on both sides began asking questions instead of taking orders. Some removed their helmets. Some simply stood beside the enemy for the first time, not as threats, but as equals. The war did not end overnight. It could not. 1,000 years of hate could not disappear in a moment. But the violence paused. That pause became a ceasefire. And that ceasefire became the beginning of peace. On the green world of Thales Prime, construction crews cleared the ruins of the old research station. In its place, a new building rose, a cultural archive and peace center, named after the fallen scholar, Ayla Soren. Her final message, recovered from the wreckage, was engraved at the entrance. Feeling is not a weakness. It's the first step to remembering we are alive. Inside the center, a new recording of One World played daily in hundreds of languages. Children gathered there, listening with quiet faces, their eyes filled with wonder. Kale Trin survived the power failure on Relay Station 9. Days after the broadcast, a civilian ship from a free planet received his emergency beacon. They found him unconscious but alive, curled up in the dark command center beside the silent console. When Kale awoke, he was in a healing pod aboard a peaceful cruiser. Nira stood beside him, smiling gently. You made it, she said. He tried to sit up. Did it work? She nodded. It reached them all. Selv and then arrived soon after. They brought news. Peace talks were starting in neutral space. Not all leaders agreed, but many had paused their attacks. Entire fleets had returned home. Civilians were demanding change. The galaxy had felt something they could no longer ignore. And Kale had become the symbol of that change. He never wanted fame. But everywhere he went, people looked at him with awe. They called him the listener, the voice of Earth, the one who remembered. He denied none of it. He only smiled, thanked them, and told them what mattered most. It wasn't me, he always said. It was the song. In the months that followed, Kale returned to Lyra Vault, the place where it all began. The station had changed. No longer a forgotten archive, it had become a gathering place. People came from all systems to learn, to share, and to feel. Dre was still there, of course, grumbling, fixing broken bots, and telling every visitor that he had been part of the whole thing. Kale took a quiet room at the back of the station. He spent his days helping others study lost languages, ancient poems, and old songs. Music had returned to the galaxy. So had memory. So had hope. One day, Kale sat in the learning hall, watching a group of alien children from different species gather around a holoscreen. They were learning to sing one world together. Some sang off-key. Some laughed through the lyrics. One of them, a Drex child, placed a hand on his chest as he sang, eyes full of emotion. Kale listened quietly. He didn't speak. He didn't interrupt. He just watched and smiled. The war was not erased, but something stronger had begun. A new tune. One not of orders or violence, but of connection. And it all started with a single song from Earth.